Hello, my name is Debbie. I'm Owlandgatorstitcher. Welcome to Flosstube number 68. Today is Friday, March 15th, 2024. This is a video mainly about cross stitch, sometimes about what I'm reading and watching as well. It's been a little bit less than 2 weeks since my last video. I'm trying to get back into the habit of doing these twice a month, and since it's the 15th and I had time today, I thought this would be a good time to do it. So if you're a new viewer here, welcome. I hope you like what you see, and if you do, click on that subscribe button. And if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate you sharing with me my love of this hobby. And there is Kaio back there, who my husband is out today, and so whenever we get up early and he has to go somewhere, the cats get very, very concerned. So both of my cats are a little bit out. The other one now is sunning herself because it's finally warm here in Florida. And by warm, I mean in the 80s. So we have a few days of that, which I love. So I know for some of you that's deathly heat, but for me, it's wonderful. Anyhow, enough about the weather. I'm going to jump in and start talking about my stitching and hope that Kaio doesn't do something to totally cause things to crash and fall down. So first thing I want to show is not actually something that I stitched. I participated in Laura Stitching by the Shore's ATC, the Artist Trading Card Swap. So if you want to go see it, go see her video, hear a lot more about it. Go watch her videos. She has a lot of videos, and she has one where she shows all the cards that she got. And the theme for this one was winter. It didn't have to be specifically holiday. Some people chose to do it. And basically we mailed everything to Laura, and then she randomly assigned swap partners to each of us. So this is the one that I received. And it's really, really cute. I love the snowman and the little cardinal on top of the tree. It's really cute. I really like it. And the stitching on this is really nice. As we all know, sometimes stitching white stitches can be a bit of a challenge, but the stitcher did a great job. So I did not participate in the one that she had in the fall. I just had too much going on in my life. Sorry, my fingers look very red in that shot. But anyhow, so really, really happy with this. And it's going to go. You can sort of see up there on my bookshelf, I have a lot of various stitching things. Some I've done, some I haven't. But I face that bookshelf a lot of the times when I stitch. You can see there's my light right there. That's the direction I stitch. And so it's nice to look up and see stitching if I need a break from what I'm actually stitching. So thank you very much to my swap partner. These past couple of weeks, I've gotten really into sort of hitting goals, which means that I will pull out a project and work on it for a couple of days to hit my goal, rather than sort of saying, oh, I'm going to put in 200 on this, then I'll move to another one today. And then maybe at the end of the month, I'll go back and put a few more stitches in. If it's something like a whip go piece where I have a lot of goals, I've been just trying to bang those goals out when I first touch the piece. That's just the way I feel like stitching right now. Could be tomorrow my mind changes and I do something else, but that's sort of what I have been in the mood to do. So fewer pieces, but more progress. First one, and unfortunately I cannot find the color cover photo. I think it got separated from the bag. It's a printout of a PDF, so it will turn up eventually, and if it doesn't, it's not a big deal. I have the pattern on Pattern Keeper. But this is Midnight Vigil. And so you can sort of see it is a kitty looking at his reflection in the window, and you can see the moon there. And this is charted by Heaven and Earth Designs, artwork by Lisa Parker. If for those of you who are familiar, Lisa Parker has a lot of these sort of dark images of cats. I love the way she does expressions on her cats. So anyhow, what I worked on this time was I was just starting, I basically was pulling colors, I had the way I had my Q snap. If I was missing something up here, I was pulling it down and just sort of doing it. So some of these sort of purpley blues, probably some gray. So not too exciting, but you can start to see the curtain as it's coming together. And again, on this side, I just think the curtain looks absolutely fabulous. That she did a great job charting this. And this is a mini. So when I say only about 79,000 stitches, I know for some people that's a lot of stitches, but as you know, for a full coverage, especially a Haid, that really isn't that many stitches. So love that one. My next one is one of my whip go pieces. My goal was 1,000 stitches. So this is Princess Lily from a French company. I am not going to try and pronounce it because I do not speak French. So this is one, I've been working on the carriage body, and I've had this in my rotation for a very long time. And the reason why it has been in there is this fabric. Well, a combination of the fabric and the pattern. So this is a witch elt, so it's not a hand dye, but it is pink. You can see, how transparent it is. And for those of you, I'm sure many of you have stitched on witch elt. This is a linen, a 28 count linen. The holes are huge, which is great. It means that they're easy to find. But what it also means is that it's hard. It's actually sometimes hard to see the linen threads. And and then some of those linen threads are really skinny. So it sometimes can be a bit of a challenge. On top of that, the way the pattern is set up, there's not a huge amount of back stitching, but it's not the back stitching of the 90s where it goes around the edge of the stitch. It's almost more like long stitches than it is backstitch in some ways. If you happen to have something that is totally vertical, you could backstitch it, but it's really designed more to have long stitches. So you may be going like over 2 and up 4, or over 3 and up 5, and so it will lead to a beautiful effect. But on the chart, it's just the way my eye goes. It sometimes makes it hard to count, even though it's large symbols, clearly gridded. There's just something about it that makes it a little bit more difficult for me to see. So it's not one that I pull out all the time, or I haven't pulled it out. And so but this was my Whip Go call, and that's part of the reason why, though I'm doing Whip Go, that I basically am ending up pulling out projects that I haven't pulled out in a while. And the other problem was that, like, about here is the center, and given the odd shape of it, I decided to do a center start, and I did, or actually this is the center over here. It ended up with me doing that, like just picking colors and doing the yellow, but that also led to challenges of counting. There's also, I don't think you can really see it very well, but there are actually 2 shades of yellow in there. And the way I was stitching, I pick up a color, and a lot of times if I can color complete in that stitching session in the section, I will do it. But if I don't, the next time I go back, I don't color complete that, I pick up another color. And so what had happened was these 2 yellows, like, I didn't color complete either of them, but then when they're next to each other, I can see the difference. But, when you've got one thing down here and one thing over here, those are actually 2 different shades of yellow, and I wasn't really seeing it. And so I was thinking, I thought like this whole thing here was wrong. And I said, okay, I'll go back and pull it out later. And then I realized I was looking at the wrong symbol. Everything is fine. But that kind of, those kinds of things slow us down at times. So what I decided to do was made sure and started in the middle. And I said, let me grow it out. And that way it's much easier to count off of it. So this is sort of the interior of the carriage. And then these are the doors. You can't really see it there. There is some very pale pink that will then be the curtains here. I'm not, the pale pink is the color of the fabric, but I'm not terribly worried about it because almost none of that is directly on the fabric. There might be a little bit on her dress, which is pink, but that's all backstitched, and it's backstitched in a dark color. So I'm not terribly worried about it. So I was glad I had a chance to pull this out and get some good progress on it. And so I'm pretty sure that I am not going to do these 4 things in the corner. I don't know how I'm going to finish this. It probably, get framed unless I decide to ask someone to make it into a pillow. But I don't think I need those sharp corners, because if I frame it, I would do it myself, and that is just more of a challenge. Whereas if I just did her in the carriage, then a lot more space for me to be less than perfect. So anyhow, that is Princess Lily. My other Whip Go piece, which I also wanted to get 1,000 stitches on, this is the tea table. This was something I started for Whip Go in May 2020, and it's also one that I don't pull out very often. I think I mentioned this in my last video because it is one like a mirror, except it's, well, you can see there, it's one big pattern, and so it's unwieldy. I did Xerox it, but then it's hard to Xerox because I have a little cheap printer that I copy on, and I can't be bothered to go to a place and actually get it, I don't want to say professionally Xerox, but on a proper Xerox machine. And so I can work through those challenges. It just means that sometimes I have to go back and look at the original chart. But my goal was to do 1,000 stitches, and that's what I did. So I had done a lot of this sort of, again, whatever it is, 209, 210, 211, around that color range. But guess the way my key snap was, I really want to get that teapot done. So I went back and had to do the handle on the lid of the teapot. Whatever that little piece is on the top. I think you all know what I'm talking about, even if it's not called a handle. But I went ahead and did that. Doesn't look great, but I'm sure when the back stitching happens, those grays will blend in better. There was a lot of white in here that I had to fill in, so you can't really see that. And I also finished the top of that, where the lid of the teapot and the scalloping of the teapot meet. So I did that, and then I had that green blotch here because I'm sure I was finishing something off my needle from when I had done it up there. This is the spout of the teapot, so I did a little bit of that. You can't really see it really well, but there is some white there. So making good progress. It's one of these that when I pull it out, it's actually very easy stitching. This is 18 count white Aida. It's not hard to stitch on. There are blends, but blends don't really scare me. And when it's a blend, there's also a lot. Like this teapot does have blends, but I'm pulling out and I can easily do 200 stitches with the blend. So it's as if I'm stitching with 2 strands, long lengths. Don't have to try and figure out now I've got 2 lengths of something that, doesn't match. It's easy. But anyhow, so that is the teapot, and that is, the tea table. I'm going to look at Serenity Designs. This is an old one. This is probably from the 90s, and you can tell that by the color palette. But I had it in my stash, and I sort of am of the mind that if I have these vintage patterns, stitch them or give them away. And so some of them I have made a decision to give away, and others I've sort of said, maybe I do want to stitch that one day, but one day has to come sooner rather than later, if that makes sense. All right, the next one I have for you, excuse me while I bend down to pick something up. The next one I have for you, I showed this last time as well. This is The Grand Library, artwork by Amy Stewart, charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. This is a supersized max color version. And I started in the bottom left-hand corner, which is not usually my start place, but it's where I wanted to start on this one because of the images. And what I successfully did was before I had some stitches left in this part of the book. This book is now 100% done. You can see some white things there, but that's actually part of the brick wall that is there. And then I've just been pulling colors as sort of I come to them and come down and work on that. And hold, please. Okay, sorry about that. So this is the book that I finished, the wall, a little bit, and then because this is max color, lots of confetti. And sometimes I just get bored with doing confetti. So then like towards the end of my stitching session, I'll pick up a color there's a lot of. So in that case, it was 939. So a lot up here and a little bit down here in the body of the thief who is stealing a piece of art. So that is the Grand Library. Next piece I show this in every video this year. This is the 2024 Heaven and Earth Designs Stitch Along. And this is Tintern Abbey. Artwork by Samuel Coleman. And we are getting it in 4 chunks. So the idea is in a quarter, you finish what you get, then you do the next. And this piece for mine was about 17,000 stitches, which I need. So anyhow, that's where I am now. There is a little bit under here that is done. But as I've just been pulling colors sort of from the top and moving down. I do not think I'm going to get this part finished in time. My original plan was never to finish this owl in a year, but if you get 4 pages done, you get all the 10 charts for free. I thought, okay, there's a few charts there I want to stitch, but I am having so much fun stitching this right now. And I think some of it, I'm not, as you know, a huge lover of browns, but I think I'm just enjoying the way watching these colors come together. And it also is it's 22 count. So I'm doing 1/1 full cross. And that really is my comfort zone. I do 1 strand. So I always feel 1 strand moves faster than when I have to do 2, even when I'm using a loop start for whatever reason, I just find it goes faster. And I think 22 count also I work on this in the evenings, and it's easy to see. I mean, I have good lighting, but I don't need, beyond my regular reading glasses, I don't need anything, no magnification. I can sit comfortably in my chair and just do it. And I've got my nice little setup. And this is an Q snap that is small enough that if a cat decides to sit on my lap, that I can position it such. When I use this is a 8.5 by 11. So obviously I have taken 2 different sets of Q snaps and made this, which a lot of people do. When I do an 11 by 11 and there's a cat in my lap, I find it very hard to stitch. It often gets their way, but when it's like this, not a problem. And in our household, when a cat wants attention like that, we give it to them because they're not really lap cats. So, but especially now that the weather is getting warmer. But anyhow, that is Tinter Nebby. All right, the next piece is one that has been more than a year that I worked on it. That is the Blue Flower, the Gentle Rain. Part of the reason why it has been more than a year, the issues were twofold. One, if you recall, last year, one of my focus pieces was Huckleberry Farm by the Blue Flower, which I absolutely loved, but it was working on that so much, I just wanted a little bit of something stylistically different if I wasn't working on it. So as a result, this one didn't come out. And then the second thing, quite frankly, was I knew I had a mistake on it, and I initially thought, like, as I was stitching it, I knew I had a mistake. And I said, okay, I'm just going to fudge and work around it. But I knew that was there, and it was in the back of my mind. And when I picked it up, I finally said, you need to work through this issue, because I love the piece. I love the Blue Flower. She's one of my favorite designers. And I couldn't, like I said, you just need to figure out where that mistake is. And when I picked it up, and it had been, because I started this in February 2023, and I don't think since the first day or two that I worked on it, I had done any, I mean, I only had a couple hundred stitches in it. I don't think I had picked it up again. When I picked it up, I realized not only was I just like off by a stitch, which again, you can see I'm like in the tree branches. It was a leaf on a tree. Like, it really doesn't matter as long as I remembered where it was. And that was the thing. I went back and tried to figure out where the mistake was. I was so off, and like 3 or 4 rows, which again, I probably could have lived without, but then I had like done leaves in strange places. I'm like, just frog all of that. So you can kind of see, so, and I did a center start on this, which I don't normally do, but, you probably can't see it now, but so there was like, this is one tree, and I'd started the leaves on the other tree, and I just frogged one of the trees. I just said, you made so many mistakes here. Just cut bait and just pick it up, frog it, and then work on this tree. So that's what I did. So I put in about 500 stitches on this, and basically this, and then the page breaks. So the branches of the tree on one page are all done. Up here are the words and stuff. And then I worked on the tree branch on the page below it. The branches themselves are mostly done. This is the last branch. Obviously, it needs to come down here. And then there's the trunk of the tree. And then obviously I need to get the leaves and the flowers and the little birds in there. But I was feeling much better after my stitching session yesterday. And that's when I worked on this, of getting it moving forward. And this is, by the way, 32 count Lugana from Stitch Me. It's the color Frost. I love blues. So I really love this fabric. I am struggling a little bit because I think when I started this, and I knew I was moving away from a purple fabric, and you can kind of see around, and it says, how sweet is the music of the rain. Around that, there is some sort of swirlies and whatever, sort of framing the words. And that's done in a light blue. And I said, okay, I'm just going to switch that, sort of flip the colors a little bit and do that in sort of a light purple. And the purple I picked looked really great on this fabric. And that is all DMC. But then I realized there are raindrops, and I kind of want my raindrops not to be purple. I don't know, Purple Rain. This is not a tribute to Prince. Love Prince, but this is not a tribute to him. So I didn't want that. And so I still have to go back. I'll show you at the end, but I did get from Black Needle Society, I did get their Winter and Stars Hollows box. And there were some threads in there, which you don't actually use in the pattern. And one of them is sort of light blue, but it's a strongly variegated thread, and I'm not sure. It goes from white to light blue to sort of a medium like periwinkle. I'm not sure that's the effect I want either, nor am I going to fussy cut and do, I don't really care about the border there so much. Like if that were all different, strongly variegated, but I do care about my raindrops. I don't really want sort of white raindrops. This is not snow, it's rain. So anyhow, and then so I've got some other color substitutions. This is the bird bath is supposed to be done in a two variegated flosses. I've made a decision to use the DMC, which she doesn't suggest she suggests the color, but she doesn't say, oh, you should do this in the DMC. But because of, you can't really see it here, but the pattern on well, you can't see it here, and that's the problem. The pattern on the bird bath gets lost with the variegated. And, when I think about bird baths and sort of, a lot of times, carved out and the figurines and all of that, or the pattern or whatever, that to me is sort of some of the beauty of bird baths, and that gets lost with the variegation. You get, the multitude of colors, but you're not getting that pattern, and I really want that. So I'll be using the DMC. I selected a different color. The raincoat is in a yellow. I have a different yellow that was in my stash. So I still have a lot of thinking to do, but I am happy that I made some good progress on this. I'll keep holding up the pattern. I'll show you one more time where I am, because as you know, I love the blue flower. So, all right, and then I have one more piece to show you, and that is it for my stitching. Again, some good progress, but on pieces, but not as much quantity as I sometimes have. Last one I have to show you is actually another blue flower. That's the cover of it. This is Snowy Snuggle Scrapbook. There's a thing what it'll actually look like when I finish it, although I'm moving around a couple of these. This is a collaboration between the blue flower and Lindy Stitches, and I have not I'm losing my words. I've not done any of these. So I think 5 of these are blue flower and 4 are Lindy Stitches. I have not done any of these from blue flower yet. From Lindy Stitches yet. I've only done 2 of the blue flower ones. And let me show you what I have done. So I am doing this as what we're calling a non-round robin with a group of friends of mine, where each of us, so one person spins a wheel, someone's name pops up. We've all got a piece that we've broken into 9 sections, and the person then calls the number and you do that number. So this month was number 5. So that was a center motif for me. So that says Snowy Snuggles. Also very easy was the box, the words, and some snowflakes. I did have to make a substitution on this green. First of all, green snowflakes, but whatever. The green that was called for in the pattern was DMC 964, which almost perfectly matches the fabric. I almost thought about leaving it because it's a snowflake. It doesn't, the image, the look of having something very pale and tone on tone, I was very happy with. But the color does appear elsewhere in the pattern and not necessarily. So I wanted something where that motif was more prominent for it to stick out a little bit more. I think, for example, I think this is 964 in here. So it's surrounded by the critter, but I still wanted something that didn't look like I just didn't stitch fabric. Like I wanted it to stick out a little bit more. So last month I did the llama. So we started at February 1st. So that was the llama I did. And then I moved on to Snowy Snuggles. So I finished it. And so the person who's running it will spin later this month, and we'll find out who calls the number and what I will be doing next month. I thought this pattern was a a Jingle Ball exclusive, but I saw someone else stitching it who I don't think said I think she said she got it at market or picked it up somewhere that was not the Jingle Ball. So they'll be great. They've got a few of these scrapbooks where they're a collaboration between both the Blue Flower and Lindy Stitches. 2 of my favorite designers, so it was sort of a no-brainer when we had to divide something into 9, and I wanted something that was manageable. And these are all, I think, this month it was under 1,000 stitches. The other one was, I think, 15. The llama was 1,500. So anyhow, that is all the stitching I have to show you this month. So if you are only here to see the stitching, thank you so much. I just have one piece of haul to show, one piece of an acquisition. Well, two from the same. So every year I have gotten the Stars Hollow box from the Black Needle Society, and so it was seasonal. So there were 4. So this one was Winter in Stars Hollow. So it was the last box, and here is the pattern that came with it. So if you're familiar with the show, lots of motifs in the show. They don't have a picture of the whole thing on here. I do like the Pop-Tarts, which again, if you know the show, Pop-Tarts feature regularly. You can see on the back, it's a strip. I am doing this as a whole. I am so hopelessly behind. I am not even done with the first one yet, but that's okay. The idea is to pick it up, enjoy it. The other pattern that came, which was actually part of the kit, we got this little one as well, a little round that you can do, and it came fully kitted. So this little Luke's mug. I have also come to the conclusion that I am not really a box person. I love kits. I love, like, I am the only club that I'm participating in this year right now is from Lindy Stitches, and it's her Endangered Animals Club. So which I'm getting the physical version. So we get the chart and whatever overdye flosses we need for the pattern. And we don't get fabric, we don't get the DMC, and that's great. Like, if I don't, I've got fabric and I have plenty of DMC. But if, I also sometimes will get packages that I'll buy it and it's kitted with all the DMC and the fabric and the pattern. And that's great too. But what I don't really like are boxes, and this is not meant to be against Black Needle Society or anyone else who does boxes. This is my personal preference. Boxes that have a lot of stuff that I don't use. So the Black Needle Society boxes they have a lot of non-stitching related stuff. And they had a mug, and I used them. I put it in the box came yesterday. The mug went in the dishwasher, and then I used it this morning. So certainly I'm using that mug. There was a lovely fleece blanket, which we have fleece blankets all over our house, not because we use them so much. We use them for like 2 months of the year when it gets a little nippy outside. But our cats love sleeping on them. So we sort of strategically place them where we want our cats to sleep. So we always have one at the foot of our bed. And so I put that one on the foot of our bed last night because the colors actually match our bedroom better than the other one we had there. And Cat sort of sniffed at it a little bit, and then she made some biscuits and laid down and slept there all night. So there are definitely, we've gotten t-shirts, we've gotten, I think the first box had coffee cake mix, which I made and ate, and it was good. So certainly there are things in there I use, but it's not, I don't know, that kind of having someone curate a box for me. And there were also plenty of things in the boxes and everything related to the Gilmore Girls, but things that I didn't use. There also were, and there were bags, not necessarily handmade bags, but that's okay. Like some really nice, I don't have to go find it. I like the bags that they included in there, and I use them. And there's always a needle minder, but like the floss that was included in the box was not used in the pattern. And so I'm not great at doing color substitutions, and I try to use it when I can, but I'm not great about it. And some of it is highly variegated. Again, that one floss that I mentioned that went from white to light blue to periwinkle. I'm just not really sure how to use that in a comfort level. And that's on one hand on me, but on the other hand, I know I've paid for a floss that I can't use. It's one thing if someone gifts it to me. It's another thing, So that's my personal preference. I know there are people out there who love those wild flosses, but I sort of kept going with the Stars Hollow boxes because I wanted all the patterns, and they also have things on Facebook. They do like a virtual retreat that you can participate in. I sort of participate in some of those, but not all of them, or not the whole thing because they go all weekend, and they're fun. And you can get prizes and stuff there too. So you're not just paying for the box, you're paying for the experience as well. But I don't know. For me, I don't get out of boxes what I want to. I'd rather, either know ahead of time what's in there. I know that there are plenty of people who do boxes that are all stitching related. So you might get more than just pattern, floss, and fabric. You get needle minders, you might get a bag, but you might get scissors. But then there's always these other little things. And sometimes I feel like I've collected so much of the other little things, and what I just want is the stuff I need to stitch, and that's very personal to me. So I think there's a lot of great boxes out there. I also see sometimes, like there was one box, not from the Black Needle Society, from another company, and she put so much thought into it. And I took a look at that pattern, and I thought, not only is that something I would never stitch, but I can actually see someone who had gotten that box and said this, the person, it was so, when it's like, I don't want to say what it was because I don't want to publicly criticize it, but it was something that was very specific to a group of people. And if you're not part of that group, and I don't mean group like 5 stitchers, I'm saying if it wasn't something that mattered to you, you were never going to stitch that. It's not like, if someone does an Easter, a spring box and it has a bunny rabbit. Okay, yes, that's Easter related, but you can make it not Easter related. You can just stitch a bunny, or if you're not Jewish and you see a menorah, you can somehow adapt it to make it look less like a menorah and just have pretty candles and a lovely scene, things like that. You can adapt the patterns, but some things just don't adapt. If you see something with scripture on it and scripture doesn't speak to you, you can change it. If you see something with a poem that has nothing to do with scripture and you don't like it, you can change it. But when the whole pattern is something, anyhow, I'm really going off on a tangent here. So not sure I'm going to be getting boxes in the future. But don't mark my words, because I can see something happen where I do get one, because there's something about it that's so exciting. Anyhow, that is all I have for stitching. The only thing I'm going to talk about book-wise is, and I'm still in the middle of it, I am listening to Bono from U2, his autobiography. It's called Surrender. And I was told, listen to it, don't get a physical copy of the book, because not only do you hear his voice, but there's music playing. Sometimes he's singing and then even playing a little bit on an acoustic guitar. Sometimes he's clearly just pulled the music from the track, depending on the mood he wants to give while he's doing it. But that is something that I just don't think would ever come through in a physical book. And you also, and he does a very good job reading it. He has, from what I've read, this was not a ghostwritten thing. It is, he wrote it. Now, obviously, like every book, I'm sure there's an editor. It is 20 hours long, and normally when I listen to audiobooks, I put them on 1.5 speed. But because I knew the music was a part of this, I'm listening to it at regular speed, and it's 20 hours. And I feel like he normally speaks slowly. His accent at this point is such a mix of Irish and American because he's lived in so many different places. But he speaks slowly, and then on top of doing it slower than I'm used to reading books, it's not dragging. It is very interesting, but it's 20 hours long, and I'm like halfway done, and I feel like I've been listening to it forever, which is good because it's a good book. But if you like U2 and sort of want to know more of their backstory, I think that they are very interesting. So I encourage you, if you like U2, to see if you can get a copy of the audiobook of Surrender. And I just got mine through my local library. I'm listening to it through Libby. That's how I get all my audiobooks. So that is all I have for you today. Nothing spectacular on the TV watching front, so I'm not going to make any recommendations. And I hope to be back towards the end of March. Until then, happy stitching. Bye.